I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, one of my friend, and also one of our regulars, and he is not just a friend, he's a very knowledgeable friend. He is Greg Mannarino, TradersChoice.net. Greg Mannarino, thank you for joining us today from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thanks for having me, Greg. As usual, I love being here. Appreciate it.
Well, I know you're all free all the time. Free book sales, free downloads, free TradersChoice.net, free YouTube channel. Just want to get that out of the way. So no more paying, no more to that. That's all done, correct?
That's all done, yes. As a matter of fact, I'm very happy to say over 12,000 copies. Actually, 12,250. I just checked copies of my free ebook, 197-page ebook were downloaded already. That's pretty nice.
That is nice, and you got zero, squat, nothing. The free tarts are loving you.
I just want people to read it. I think it's important for people to understand what's going on.
Okay, well, that's why I'm having you on, to understand. You're a market guy. We love your brain. We love your analysis. It seems like they've got some sort of a deal in Greece. It seems like the stock market is nirvana. I mean, you predicted that they would drive it higher, and we'd hit one new high after another, which has happened. How close are we to this ending?
Greg, I tell you, I look at charts constantly, as you know, and I spent most of yesterday looking at longer-term charts here. I think things are looking very bad in the immediate future here. A lot of things are in play with regard to the U.S. equity market, with regard to the U.S. economy and the U.S. dollar. A lot of stuff in play here. Let's talk about that just real quick. What we understand is going to start happening this month. The ECB is going to actually start their Japan-style, Federal Reserve-style quantitative easing. That is going to make the U.S. equity market look a little less desirable to be in at this point. And I think we're going to see some cash leave the U.S. stock market. But something else is in play that I think is scary. That is this. The U.S. dollar, as we all know, has been on quite a tear lately for a lot of reasons. There's a knee-jerk reaction into the safety of the U.S. dollar. We're also seeing this full-on, full-blown currency war. We just found out that the Chinese central bank just lowered their interest rate too. They're engaging in this currency war as well. So what I think it has a high probability of occurring here is these gains that we've seen in the dollar could take off like parabolic from here. That is not good. Not good.
Does that mean the dollar takes off parabolically? And then what will all these U.S. companies be saying? They're going to be going to the Federal Reserve saying, hey, we can't, this is killing our business, aren't they?
Exactly. This is what I think has happened, honestly. The Federal Reserve has models that they use to gauge what they believe is going to happen down the line. Their models are obviously not working at this point. With all this talk of possible interest rate hikes, which we know that they cannot do, if this event happens, which I think there's a high probability of, again, think about why. We have the ECB, which is going to actually start, not just talk about it, but start their QE program. That is going to push the U.S. dollar higher, and as you had just alluded to, U.S. multinational companies who are having to deal with currency exchange rates are going to fall under more pressure. That is going to put pressure across Wall Street, as we know, and it's going to also put the Federal Reserve in a much worse spot than they're already in. Again, their model that they've been using, I believe, to gauge all this is flawed. They did not see this dollar strength coming, and they're trying to maintain the attitude, well, everything is okay, and we're going to increase interest rates sometime this year. I don't believe it's going to happen even maybe into next year. I don't think it's going to happen at all. Because why? Look at all the world's central banks, including the Bank of China now, engaging in this currency war. The Federal Reserve is going to have to follow suit. They can't just sit there and do nothing about it, because it's going to cause distortions in the market, which is going to hurt investments. The U.S. equity market can fall precipitously.
So what's their action going to do? What are they going to do? They're just going to start coming out and say, hey, we got QE4, or we have, they're going to do some sort of bond buying or money printing, or what are they going to do?
Greg, what I urge people to do, and I've been screaming from rooftops about this for quite a while, is just do a little bit of research and understand that at least Since 2012, the Federal Reserve has been requiring banks to buy debt. Okay, this is huge. Instead of lending this money out, they're forcing them to buy debt. That's incredible. Now, what else are they doing to try to combat this dollar strength? Again, I urge everyone to just go to the usdebtclock.org. The Federal Reserve is trying to combat this right as we speak by printing epic sums of cash out of thin air at a blinding pace. As a matter of fact, it's so fast. If you go to the money creation, look at the M2, the digits cannot even keep up with how fast the Federal Reserve is printing cash out of thin air right at this moment to try to combat this deflationary environment. What did we just find out? The Labor Department just came out and released that we've seen a drop in the consumer prices, the largest since 2008. Since 2008. What are they going to do? Sit there and just let this continue? Because I cannot see a reason why the U.S. dollar is not going to go higher from here, again, because of the actions of the World Central Bank, because of what China just did, and because of what the ECB is going to start doing this month.
Well, if the dollar goes higher at this point, doesn't that mean that fuel prices will stay low? Doesn't that mean that we'll have some sort of nirvana for consumers? And if so, is that so bad? And what's the downside?
All right, excellent point. 8 things you just brought up. When I had heard, and I did video after video about this, I wrote blog after blog about it. When the pundits on the financial channels, the mainstream, was saying this is going to be a nirvana, like you said, for consumers, they were going to go spend money like crazy, that they were saving on energy, it never materialized. It just is not going to happen in this particular environment. Is a strong currency good for the people? Absolutely it is. There's no doubt about it. But again, we're in a currency war, and all of the world central banks, including the Federal Reserve, are going to participate in this here. Now, regarding fuel and energy, like you just said, huge swathes of the market are dependent upon energy and the price of energy being high. So we saw last time what happened in the equity market when energy dropped to $40 or whatever it was. The stock market took a pounding. I believe in this scenario that I think has a high probability of unfolding, we are going to see energy prices fall once again. That's going to pull the equity market with it down. This could be significant. This could be a significant downfall that we're going to see over the next, possibly immediate future, into the next few weeks.
A downfall in the stock market.
In the stock market.
And, and give us the thumbnail of your scenario, just this.
Okay. Like I said, this month the ECB is going to start their quantitative easing program. I think that's going to boost the U.S. dollar higher than it is already, and it could be much higher. I think the scenario that a lot of people are considering right now is the dollar, they're waiting for the dollar to fall. I'm not sure that's going to happen in this environment right now, because there's this flight to safety mechanism. It's a knee-jerk reaction that we always see. Now, that also raises another specter here, Greg. Is it possible that, again, I'm looking at longer-term charts here, is it possible that we're staring down a black swan event that's going to force people into the safety play, into Treasury, into U.S. Treasuries, into the U.S. dollar? And if that does happen, that's going to cause pressure on equities. People's investments, their 401k plans, their retirement plans, can suffer greatly. In fact, they can be devastated like last time. There's no doubt that this is going to happen at one point. But what I see in the immediate future is a very high probability, again, nothing is written in stone here, but a very high probability that because of the actions of the World Central Bank, because the Federal Reserve, again, is going to, I think, lose their own credibility by not being able to raise rates despite trying to force feed everyone that they're in control. The Federal Reserve they dropped the ball here. Their model, whatever model they use to measure this, is greatly flawed. They did not see this dollar strength coming. They did not see what is occurring and how it was going to affect Wall Street at this point. And we know that Wall Street runs the world, Greg. So you can expect the Federal Reserve will be forced to act to punish the dollar at one point, and that's going to hurt the Federal Reserve's credibility.
Wow. And they're just going to do that are they going to announce it overtly that they're going to start buying bonds? Are they going to, tell the banks, start loaning out this money? Or, you're saying that banks are forced to buy debt. They're forced to buy U.S. debt. They're forced to buy Treasury debt. They're forced to finance America by, this kind of a Ponzi scheme, check kiting, kind of a put money from this pocket to this pocket. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Greg. I think it's going on right now. Please, people, do a little research, look into it, go on Google. They can see this happening. They can see what's going on in real time with regard to the money printing. And there's no doubt about this. They cannot stop doing this, Greg. We've seen this already. We know how this plays out. Just look at Japan, the poster child for quantitative easing that can never stop. When a world central bank becomes so desperate that they have to engage in this type of behavior, you know things are very, very bad. And even Alan Greenspan just last week came out talking about how the global economy is extraordinarily weak, despite what we're hearing from the mainstream media, that everything is good and they got everything under control. Look, Greg, the fact of the matter is this: nothing is real. When you have world central banks that are taking a part of the market, the debt, which the entire system is based upon, and manipulating it, it distorts every single asset class across the spectrum. So there's no price discovery mechanisms anywhere. And there's going to be a terrible price to pay for this. And we can see this going on right now. There's no doubt about it.
When you say terrible price to pay, what does that mean? How does John Q, sleeping John Q public, figure out, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's the price? What would it look like?
The price is this. It's very simple. I believe in the last talk that we did, we talked about how we're seeing cracks in this debt bubble. I cannot stress to people the issue that this is. This is not just a financial problem. People blow this off. This is a resource issue, Greg. And what that means is when this debt bubble bursts, basic necessities, resources that people need just to sustain their lives is not going to be available. This is a resource issue on a global scale. So what we can expect as this entire fake system continues to fall apart, because it's falling apart right before our eyes. Again, there's no reason to look. The collapse is now. We know this. We're seeing this train wreck just happen right before our very eyes. People are going to be rioting in the streets of every nation on earth when this comes apart. There's no doubt about it. And there's no way out of it either, as far as I'm concerned.
Because people will just wake up and say, wow, oh my gosh, I'm broke. My fiat money is not money anymore.
Again, let me just put another perspective on this, because there's a lot of people saying, well, we've been hearing this for a long time. The reason why that we haven't seen massive inflation already, in fact, we've seen deflation, we understand that, we just talked about this here, is, again, the Federal Reserve, their model is not working. They didn't factor in the fact, and this is a fact, anyone can look it up, that the money velocity, the rate at which cash is moving through an economy, is near historic lows. So there's a tremendous lag effect being created. In other words, all this cash that's been being printed out of thin air, that has been already and continues to be, is not making its side over to the consumer side of the monetary base yet, because of the money velocity being so low at historic lows. But this lag effect is not going to continue. At one point, we're going to see the money velocity pick up, Greg, and it's just a simple mathematical equation. When you have all of these extra printed dollars chasing the same amount of goods, what do you get? You get inflation. And again, what the Federal Reserve is doing right at this moment by trying to fight this deflationary environment, by printing cash out of thin air at a blinding pace, is just exacerbating the problem, which we're all going to have to face down the line.
It's absolutely paradoxical. They're printing money like crazy, and we're getting actually decreasing in pricing. And you're saying, and I've heard other people say this too, so we get this deflation first, and then what they're doing to combat it will turn into massive inflation. You almost sound like John Williams. But is that what you're saying, that what they're doing is combating this deflation, and once all of what they've done gets into the system, it ricochets the other way?
Absolutely. Another reason why we're seeing this deflation is lack of demand. Going back to what Greenspan said. I mean, if the global demand is low, what does that mean for prices? They're going to have to come down. Again, it's because of the distortions that have been created by the world central banks, none more so than the Federal Reserve, that we are all staring down the barrel of the worst financial cataclysm that has ever been seen, witnessed, or even heard of in human history. That is what we're staring down the barrel of, Greg.
You got to ask yourself, how bad does it have to be for Alan Greenspan to say it's terrible? That we have a huge global problem, economic problem in the entire world, and none of it's good.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, people like him, they have to come out and try to shed a little light on this, because then all of these people are going to have something to answer for as as the system continues to melt down. There's no way out of this, Greg. I can't envision a scenario, as hard as I think about it, that this will not turn into a financial disaster of epic proportions for every human being on this earth.
And I just want to bring it back really down to the touchy-feely, human side. Some people listening to this maybe the first time, maybe not. They'll say, well, I go out to the restaurant, it's packed, there's a waiting list. I go here, there's a waiting list. I go to the car wash, there's a big line of people who are waiting. It looks like, to me, the economy is doing just great. And you would say?
And I would say this is the calm before the storm here, Greg. There's no doubt about it. The Federal Reserve has flooded the system with liquidity to the point of ridiculousness. They've re-inflated an equity market bubble. They're trying as hard as they can to re-inflate a credit bubble. So people are living on nothing but borrowed time, as far as I'm concerned, at this particular point. And again, this gleeful deflationary environment, the world central banks are doing everything that they can to combat it. And I think they've already missed the ball, but they're going to overshoot this by leaps and bounds. And that's why inflation down the line is a guarantee. It is an absolute guarantee. Massive inflation. There has to be a price to pay for this. Everything has to balance out, Greg. There cannot be a way out of a serious price to pay for the actions of the world central banks. It's a sad thing, but it's true.
And you think this thing with Greece, for example, and this is one of the canaries in the global, economic coal mine. You think the thing with Greece, they bought a few months, and people are rioting in Athens, and they're like, well, we didn't vote for this, and they just buy any time. I mean, does that? They're going to give them some more debt that they can't. $350 some odd. I mean, $1 billion that Greece has, 11 million people. I mean, they're going to give them even more debt they can't pay off. I mean, that they surely know, the people in the European Union, that they're not paying that back, never. Is that part of what they're just kind of extended to pretend?
100%. And Greece is a microcosm of what's going on a global scale. The issue is debt. Period. It's the system that demands that debt be borrowed into existence in perpetuity and cannot stop. It's the debt expansion cycle that you and I have spoken about, that I sincerely believe we are at the end of right now. It cannot go on in perpetuity, in forever, without a consequence. And I think we're starting to see that. This issue with Greece, what are they doing? They're trying to again fix the debt problem by adding more debt to it. For the IMF, giving them more cash. It can never be paid back. None of this can. And the issues associated with it all, Greg, and you know this, through the derivative market and everything else, is a frightening prospect that is going to affect every single human being on this planet.
Is that why the war drums are beating so loudly? I mean, it looks like they're antagonizing them in in the Eastern European theater in Ukraine. That the ISIS, the Islamic State, they're training people to try to take these guys out. That they're just the war drums are banging. Is that why?
Without any doubt, Greg, it's 100%. We've all seen this coming here. We've spoken about it. In fact, I wrote about this in my initial publication, The Politics of Money. All of this is leading towards war, global war. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, this is how they're going to end this whole thing, and we're seeing the beginnings of this now. It's incredible when you have people like John Kerry coming out talking about, hey, this is the most peaceful time in human history, and the White House spokesperson saying this is tranquil. I mean, when they're saying these things and you see what's going on, obviously there's something going on. There's something very wrong.
Well, I think at the end of 2014, one of the top Obama officials, I can't remember who it was, CIA, national security issues, said that 2014 was the most violent, terror-prone years ever. So I don't know. I mean, so
it's laughable. It really is. But it's part of the manufacturing of some type of a false something that they need to force feed the people. It's unfortunate, Greg, and it really is that people have been so dumbed down and brainwashed and whatever else you want to call it into the paradigm that everything is just fine when nothing is fine and nothing is real. Nothing is real. It's very scary.
Is that why there's a push to kind of make illegal certain types of 223 ammunition, for AR-15s? Is that, the whole thing with net neutrality is supposed to be some great thing for the consumer, to everybody at the same speed, yet they wouldn't release the report. The head of the FCC wouldn't even come to Congress to talk. They just voted it done, saying, whoop, wow, our work is done. This is a great day for America, but nobody knows what it is. Is that the way they did it, the way that this is unfolding? Doesn't that give people, even whether it's true or not, doesn't that make people nervous about how they're making these sweeping actions and why now?
Well, why? That is the main issue. People need to start questioning why everything. Why are we being lied to? Why are they trying to, do things like take ammunition out of the hands of people? Why are they trying to disarm the people? Why are we one nation under surveillance? Why are we being watched? Why is everything we do being questioned? That's really it. If we were in a true free society, would any of this be going on here? Would we, if the world economy and everything was in such great shape, would the world be in such a terrible state of strife right now? Absolutely not. I think, again, all you got to do is open one eye and look around and say what they're telling us is just not true. And anyone with the slightest capacity to think has to be a little bit scared right now, because what we're being told and what the facts are polar opposites.
You know what the really scary thing for me is? At some point, masses of people are going to go, poing, oh my gosh, we're screwed, and that's when things are going to get crazy.
That's what I talk about all the time, Greg. I say the zombie apocalypse is real. And when the zombies do wake up, and those are the people, the misinformed, those that have so bought into this fake existence, they are going to have that moment, and that moment is going to be frightening. I would imagine that a lot of the people in Greece are feeling that right now, trying to get their cash out of these banks, realizing, hey, something is going on here. We saw this play out in Cyprus. Now they're going to do this in Greece here. Now, Greg, I think what they're doing here is they're setting up something. They want to see how the people are going to respond. And as this plays out here, they're going to, unfortunately, do more and more things to take away our freedoms, to, create an environment where they have more control. Because there's no way out of this, Greg. Pandemonium in the streets of every nation, including the United States, is coming. It's just a matter of time.
Gregory Mannarino, TradersChoice.net. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thanks, Greg.